and then scold Americans who don't trust his Department of Justice. It would honestly be hilarious if this was not so serious. It is beyond parody, and there's so much more. As you know, the FBI worked with the NSA in their twisted mission to destroy Trump, the swamp drainer himself, unmasking Trump team phone calls with foreigners, the moves the partisan DOJ made against Papadopoulos, Flynn, Manafort, Carter Page. The assault they leveled was brutal, and it was highly partisan. Harassment you would never see against a Democrat or really any member of an establishment administration for the most part. There are two teams in Washington, and Trump has never really belonged to either. So, of course, he must be destroyed. FISA warrants against Trump team members, which Bill Barr even said were based on the thinnest of suspicions that, in his view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken. But yes, remember, you must trust the FBI this time. With Carter Page, the FBI ran into a very interesting problem. Page had actually worked with the CIA as an intel asset. He had literally worked to help the CIA with Russia. Well, that doesn't vibe with the narrative the FBI was trying to manifest with Russiagate, does it? So that was left out of those affidavits. Yes, the same style affidavit they want you not to see in regard to the Mar-a-Lago raid. FBI attorney Kevin Kleinsmith literally altered a CIA email about Carter Page to say not a source for the CIA. When Kleinsmith was caught up in John Durham's probe, there were no raids, just 12 months of probation. Just don't do it again, Kevin. That was bad. Just don't do it again. What about Peter Strzok, who worked so hard to keep Trump out of office, helping to manufacture Russian collusion and then pretending to believe his lie even after he was caught and then grilled on Capitol Hill?
But I strongly believe today's hearing is just another victory notch in Putin's belt and another milestone in our enemy's campaign to tear America apart.
The same Putin that did absolutely nothing during Trump, and then as soon as Biden got in the White House, invaded Ukraine. Yeah, that Putin that's just was benefiting so much having Trump in the White House. Just another notch in his belt. What a pathetic joke. Well, what put him in that chair that day? Well, nothing too serious. Just his intention to implement an insurance policy to destroy Trump if he won the election. And that, of course, is exactly what happened, beginning with an assault on Michael Flynn, which a review found the FBI misrepresenting what Flynn had told them. You move on to Andrew McCabe leaking to the press information that was designed to prove that he was not going soft on Hillary Clinton when we all knew that he was. We know that his wife was campaigning and using Hillary money through the guy in Virginia, whatever his name is, and then lying about it to the FBI. You know what happens if you lie to the FBI? Andrew McCabe actually came out ahead. Now he makes loads of cash on CNN, way more than he did working there. And finally, do you remember when Trump claimed, I should say, that Obama was spying on him and the media went nuts?
There is no evidence that Donald Trump was wiretapped by Barack Obama. It was and continues to be a lie.
His baseless accusation that Obama wiretapped him.
This was just an effort to deceive and to distract.
There's just no there.
You remember that. It was incredulous to think that the government would ever spy on a presidential candidate. This is America. Get real. This guy's crazy. He's nuts. And then came the epic about face.
CNN has learned that investigators wiretapped former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort under secret court order, both before and after the 2016 election. And that surveillance continued into this year.
So this is the DOJ and the FBI that we're supposed to implicitly trust this time. At the Mar-a-Lago raid, they can't show you the sworn affidavit that agents used to get Bruce Reinhart to sign off on that raid. They can just leak out little bits like, ooh, we had a camera and we saw something really scary. Seriously, it was really scary what we saw on that camera. Really scary. It was like probably Trump and Putin looking over nuclear documents in the hallway after a round of golf. Yeah, that's what it was. Just don't ask us to prove that. The FBI plays dirty, they lie, and they have a political bias, and they also have incredible power. In regards to the Trump raid, the Biden-installed leader of the DOJ does not want information to be released about this. He's saying it out loud. But the dangerous orange man wants you to see everything. So what's your gut tell you in a moment like that? Well, maybe the something that alarmed the agents in that video the catalyst for this raid is really nothing. Maybe it's a big flop like everything else that's been weaponized. Again, attorney for the District of Columbia, Joe DeGeneva. And sir, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Many of the same agents who worked on the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into Russian collusion, we know how dirty that was, not only were fired, some of them were fired, like Peter Strzok, but you have some of these people now working on this investigation. What are your first thoughts on that?
Well, it completely undermines the credibility of the FBI. Yep. The disgrace that was Crossfire Hurricane has proven to be a complete embarrassment to the FBI, but apparently not to these people who are still working there, and apparently not to Chris Wray, who appears to be oblivious to the absolute degradation of the Bureau under his leadership that is occurring. I think it says much about Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray that they are allowing these agents who were part of Crossfire Hurricane to have anything to do with an investigation of the former president of the United States. This is truly disgraceful. Everything about this raid, everything about the search warrant stinks to high heaven. And believe me, if there were certain things that they were really worried about, why did they wait 4 days after getting the warrant to execute it? Why did that happen? And what was the purpose of waiting so long to get the warrant? The answer was they wanted to get this judge. They wanted Judge Reinhardt. They know how these judges are assigned in every federal district court in the country. And they waited and waited, and then he came up on that weekend. They went to him and they got it. Now, for some reason, they thought that was going to help them. Well, he certainly issued the warrant, but we don't know if the warrant was justified because we haven't seen the affidavit. And in most cases, you don't. And the likelihood of us seeing anything of significance in this affidavit after the redactions is practically non-existent.
The fact that they're going to redact this affidavit, I didn't think they'd release it at all. I understand that it sounds to me like that's pretty commonplace, that you're not going to get to see that. And maybe there is some threat to the investigation from that. But in this particular case, and the problem here is that once we've already seen what's done with affidavits in order, the way they can use bad information, false information, the way they use a Steele dossier in a sworn affidavit to get wiretaps. When you see how dirty and fast and loose they've played with these things, which are very useful to them to get the investigations that they want, the warrants that they want, at some point, you just have to say, well, you have to start showing us these now. Who cares about your investigation? If you guys are going to get caught cheating with these documents, with these affidavits, then we got to see them.
Well, you're absolutely right, Rob. Remember, the Carter Page affidavits were full of lies. Kevin Kleinsmith, the FBI lawyer, was prosecuted and convicted for lying and changing information in one of the Carter Page affidavits. And then we have all of this process that has gone on over the last 4 years. There is the way that this search warrant was executed shows without a doubt that this search was pretextual. This thing about the records is nonsensical. The President of the United States has ultimate authority over his records. He has the power to declassify. All of those issues will be worked out here. But why in the name of heaven did they have to execute a search warrant? It was absolutely unnecessary. If they had a fear, for example, about after their meetings that there was something wrong, here's what you do. If you're the FBI director, you hold a press conference and you say, we have been in negotiations with the former president. We're having great difficulty. We're trying to work with his lawyers. It's not working out. So we're going to have to issue another subpoena, and we're going to have to go to court if there are any problems with it. That's what you should have done. You don't execute a search warrant at the residence of the former president. That was done to intimidate and harass the former president, and it was done purposely. And you just know that there was a smile on the face of Christopher Wray when that was executed.
Oh, I think a lot of people were loving this. I mean, you look at the media. I mean, they were rejoicing. You thought it was Christmas. Your wife was raided by the FBI. Tell us about that story.
Yeah, yes, in April of 2021, Victoria and I were home on a Saturday morning. There was a knock on the door at 6 a.m., the usual time for search warrants. A group of FBI agents showed up. I opened the door, and a very nice lead agent said, Mr. DeGeneva, I apologize for being here. We don't want to be here. We respect you and your wife. We love what you've done for law enforcement over the years, but we have this search warrant that we have to execute. Here's what we want. We want your wife's cell phone and her iPad. I said, come on in, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the dining room table. Let's see what we've got. We showed them the iPad. It wasn't the one they wanted because the one they wanted had been destroyed over the years. When you replace them, you learn you have to destroy these things. You never leave them around. And the cell phone was the one they wanted. We gave it to them. They left, and we got the phone back in 2 days. But there's no doubt that this was an in terrorem search. The Southern District of New York issued a search warrant. All they had to do was make a phone call or send a subpoena. We're all practicing lawyers. We're members of the bar. We have good reputations. The search warrant was designed to be a smear. And the Justice Department notified the press that they were coming to our house. Unfortunately for the press, the FBI left because we cooperated fully with them. We gave them the device they wanted. They were very happy. By the way, the agents were very professional. Right. They did not search our house. They were very professional. They left. They were gone within a half an hour. They got what they wanted. We got the phone back. And of course, we were told by my wife was told by our lawyers that she is not a target, but she had information on her phone that related to Rudy Giuliani.
I see. You know, and that speaks a lot to the rank and file of the FBI. You know, there's a lot of good people that are
Sure.
working under a pretty rough
Sure.
leadership inside inside the DOJ right now. It is something else. Joe DeGenova, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
You bet, Rob.
Let's go now to constitutional scholar and attorney Alan Dershowitz. Sir, good to have you on. Rick Grinnell is a frequent guest on this show, as you know. He talks a lot about what he calls the abuse of the classification process, saying that a lot of things are classified when they don't need to be. The FBI is claiming they don't want to reveal sources and methods when they classify things, and then when they don't allow things to be made public, such as this affidavit. I was wondering your thoughts on that claim that a lot of things are overclassified or classified for no reason.
Well, I've been doing this 60 years. I was one of the lawyers in the Pentagon Papers case, and liberals, civil libertarians, the ACLU was always on the side of ending classification, limiting it, disclosure. But now that these matters are being used to, quote, get Trump, anything goes. So the left has suddenly turned into the reactionary hard right when it comes to these kinds of searches and seizures and classification. And the Espionage Act of 1917, these are all things the left hated, hated, hated. Now that they're being used against Trump, they love, love, love. It's utter hypocrisy. It's left-wing McCarthyism. There's no other word for it.
It's something else. Hey, as you process this, do you have any predictions about how this plays out? Do you think an indictment comes? Do you think this ends? I mean, I think we all feel that this is political, and even you, as traditionally a liberal, agree with that. Do you think that this just becomes a slow leak problem for Trump over the next couple of months as we go into the midterms, or do you think they make a bold move?
No, I think it will be a slow leak. I don't think in the end there will be an indictment unless they find a Nixon-like smoking gun. I don't think they're going to indict the president, former president of the United States, on the basis of a weak case for which he could be acquitted or reversed on appeal. It will divide the nation terribly. So I think Garland will show common sense and say, unless there is Nixon-like smoking guns, unless the Republicans all get together, as they did with Nixon, and say, this man must be indicted, this man must be prosecuted, I don't think we're going to see that. And you cannot allow an incumbent administration to try to protect its own president by going after the man who is going to run against him. And I want to make sure he has the right to run, Donald Trump, because I want to have the right to vote against him for the third time. I am not a Trump supporter. I am a constitutional supporter. I would be making exactly the same arguments if they were going after Hillary Clinton as I did, or Sandy Berger, or anyone else. It's one rule for everybody.
I tell you what, I like the way you put it. Ashton Gorka series continues exposing FBI's political leadership and heavy-handed tactics, not just against Trump in the recent raid at Mar-a-Lago, but also many in his inner circle have experienced this. Trump's former advisor, Peter Navarro, intercepted by the feds at the Nashville airport back in early June. He was arrested, put in handcuffs, leg irons, and frog marched to a jail cell. This is later on, much happier time when it was all over, until he appeared in court for arraignment later that same day. It was a huge, ridiculous spectacle, of course, all over 2 misdemeanor charges for contempt of Congress, the same charges Eric Holder faced You remember him, Obama's boy. Eric Holder faced the same charges over the Fast and Furious scandal. I do not recall the same treatment happening to him. Do you? Peter Navarro joins us now. And, sir, it's good to have you back on. It seems a federal D.C. judge appointed by Barack Obama overseeing your case questioned the tactics of the FBI during your arrest. According to Politico, the judge saying in a hearing back in July, it's curious at a minimum why the government treated Mr. Navarro's arrest in the way they did. It's a federal crime, but it's not a violent crime. It is a surprise to me that self-surrender was not offered. That's from an Obama judge.
Rob, look, we're trying to get to the bottom of that with a motion to compel discovery, and we'd love to know who made the decision to do what they did for a misdemeanor. But let me say two things. First of all, let me make a little production note here. Like every time people have Paul Manafort on, they should show a picture of him before he went into prison. And that man has aged 20 years because of what the federal government did to that guy unnecessarily and brutally. And I'm facing a 2-year prison term, Rob, for a misdemeanor simply because I stood up for my commander-in-chief and the Constitution, and I'm caught between this rock and a hard place over conflicting interpretation of what executive privilege and testimonial immunity means. But for your special this week, know this. It's like I was taken down in leg irons by 5 armed FBI agents by handguns. There was no need to do that. I lived literally right across the street from the FBI. Voluntary surrender is the norm. The parallel with Mar-a-Lago was a battalion of FBI agents with armed automatic weapons raiding panty drawers and taking passports. Disproportionate response. If you read the underlying paperwork of what they did to the boss, they're simply trying to stop him from running for office in 2024 because they know he will win and rule this country in a way which is for the people, not for the corporate media and for the corporatists and globalists. So this is what this is about. And I'm just, I'm continually astonished by what the FBI keeps doing. I mean, that Mar-a-Lago thing, I thought mine was over the top. That was like, are you kidding me? I think that you said something earlier. It's like, it's time for the FBI agents themselves to own up. Because if they keep silent after all of this, they're just as complicit as any gendarmes are in any authoritarian regime. This is way over the top. I try to get people to focus on the signal rather than noise. The signal right now is November 3rd. My Taking Back Trump's America book is a serious work designed to take the gavel out from the clutches of Nancy Pelosi, return it to Trump Republicans so they'll stop weaponizing the investigatory powers of Congress illegally and unconstitutionally in a way which perpetuates this dual system government. You know what it says on the Supreme Court? Equal justice under law, right on the Supreme Court building. We don't have that right now, Rob.
No, we don't. Peter Navarro, thank you so much for explaining the story. You make some good points, especially about Manafort. It's unreal. We appreciate it.